That's what you need to know about.
Hi, do you want to know methods how to make water portable? Me too. Let's go.
That's it.
Hey science fans, it's been a while. So I'm going to do some revision on water. It's pretty useful. And how we make water potable, which means drinkable. So not pure, none of the water we drink is pure really, but how we take water and we make it clean enough to drink without giving us awful diseases, etc. Now this is for chemistry paper 2, AQA trilogy, triple, foundation, higher. Everyone needs to do this. You need to know the 3 methods. So method number 1, using groundwater. Method number 2, using seawater. And method number 3, sewage water. It's all beautiful. Let's get going. So it's important to note that potable water still has a small number of salts dissolved in it, and it still does have some microorganisms in it. Like I said before, it is not pure. It's a very important raw material. We need water for all sorts of processes. Photosynthesis is one. And you've looked at before, so a good link is thinking about the water cycle, so evaporation, condensation, etc. Because the majority of water that we do get is in the water cycle. Okay, so let's go. Okay, oh look, nice blue paper to go with the water theme. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with, up here, I'm going to start with how we get groundwater. So this is water from rivers, lakes, reservoirs, from the ground essentially, rain. Okay, essentially this is the easiest one. We need to remove large solid particles, so we filter. And we normally filter it with things like sand. You would have done this in year 2, made a water filter or something like that. And then the second thing we need to do is sterilise it. And we will sterilise it with sterilising agents. Okay, and there's 3 agents that you need to know. 1, Cl, chlorine gas, which is chlorine. And number 2 is O3, which is ozone. And it's just about to write number 4 there, which is silly. And the other thing we can use is ultraviolet light. You need to learn those 3 sterilising agents. And what these will do is they will reduce the number of salts and dissolve minerals, because obviously as water passes over rocks and things like that, it takes in minerals and things like that and microorganisms. So that is a very quick method to produce potable water. The second method is to use, is to desalinate. Okay, and the word saline means salt, so desalinate seawater. Okay, we're an island. If bad times occur, we need to be able to use that seawater. And there are 2 methods that you can use to do this. Method number 1 is we can do distillation. Okay, so we can essentially, this is going to be a terrible, terrible classic Mrs Corbett diagram. So we can essentially get our salt water, we can heat it up, we can put it through a condenser to cool, to produce condensing, and we put our salt water in here, we heat it up here, the water will evaporate, it will condense in this, and it will come down and we can collect it here. We can check to see whether we have got whether we've got potable water by testing it for microbes. We can test the pH, but remember the pH isn't going to necessarily always be 7 unless it's completely pure water. Now, the problem with this is it requires you to heat something, so it requires a lot of energy, which makes it really expensive. The other method is reverse osmosis. And again, another classic Mrs Corbett diagram. So essentially, osmosis is the movement of water particles along a concentration gradient across a partially permeable membrane. That's my membrane. My seawater goes in here, and a lot of energy is required to cause pressure to push the salt water across this membrane. The salt particles are too large to go across the membrane, and so we have fresh water is produced here. To produce the pressure, again, we need energy, which again, expensive. I'd like to have used a dollar sign there and a pound sign there. The final way, which is the grossest, is to treat wastewater. And essentially what this does is we're treating sewage, then releasing it back into the watercourses, and therefore we then are producing water that will then be found in groundwater. Okay, so to produce wastewater, there are basically 4 treatments that you need to do. So step 1 is screening, so all of the large solids are removed. LS, large solids. Step 2, what we do is we have something called primary treatment. And what we do is we let the large solids settle, smaller than these, and it becomes sludge. And then the liquid is known as now effluent. Good name. And then we move on to the secondary treatment. Classic Mrs Corbett desk, covered in rubbish. The secondary treatment is, this is brilliant. We use bacteria which decay and break down, decompose the solids, and they will just get rid of any remaining organic matter and harmful microorganisms present. And they do it aerobically, which means what they do is you have these big tanks of all of this horrible liquid and they pump oxygen into it so it bubbles. Okay, so it's like a big bubbly tub of mess. Stage 4, in the last tank, we take out all the bacteria. The useful bacteria settles out at the bottom. And normally, any of the solid like sludge, we then use as fuel, biofuel or fertiliser. And the liquid is safe enough to be discharged back into the rivers. And then that means that we're producing some more groundwater there. Okay, that's it. That's what you need to know about making water safe. That's it. Really quick overview. Water. 3 methods. Glad I actually did the correct number there. Quite often that doesn't happen. 3 methods, you need to know that. C2 exam next week. Smash it. Bye. Worth mentioning, you might need to, can you tell it's a different day? Worth mentioning, you might need to evaluate them. Which one is easiest? The groundwater. Sterilise it, filter it, sterilise it. Really short, not a lot of energy required. Desalination requires energy to provide pressure and heat. Expensive. And then the final one, treating water, sewage water, means that you are spending a lot of money on a lot of different stages and a lot of equipment. So sterilising groundwater is the easiest. If you had to rank them, that's the easiest. And the other 2, money, stages, etc. Cool.